morning, fourth graders. How are you this morning? This is our e-learning lesson for math for Friday the 27th. Okay, let's take a look at your lesson 108. It's naming place value. So we're going to do a quick little review of place value of whole numbers first, and then we'll take a look at place value of decimal numbers. So if we have the number 364, you know that we start here with the 4, and the 4 is in the ones place, followed by the 6, which is the tens place, and then the 3 is in the hundreds place. Okay, that is your whole, a regular whole number, and your places ones, tens, and hundreds. Now, let's add a decimal to that. So now instead of just 364, now we have 364 and 700ths. Remember, when there are two places to the right of the decimal point, it's hundredths. If there's just one place, it would be tenths. So after the decimal point, the first place immediately to the right of the decimal point is your tenths place, because again, if you only had that one digit, that would be tenths. But when you have two digits, that's hundredths. Now, also want you to notice that for tenths and hundredths, you're adding that TH to it, tenths, hundredths, different from tens and hundreds. Okay, so again, to the first place to the right of the decimal point is your tenths, two places, it's hundredths. Now, at the bottom of your lesson, the first example, they want you to look at the digit 3 in each of these numbers. So we want to look at the 3 and decide what place is the 3 in each of these decimals. So here we have 23 and 4 tenths. Now always remember, to the left of the decimal point are your whole numbers, to the right of the decimal point are your decimal numbers. So here we have a 3. Immediately to the right of our, immediately to the left of the decimal is your ones. So here we're looking at the 3. That's the place immediately to the left of the decimal. That is your ones. Okay, that's your ones place. Again, if you forgot about this decimal right here and you had the number 23, you would know that that's 3 ones. It hasn't changed. In the next number, we have 2 and 34 hundredths. Now we're looking at the number that's immediately to the right of the decimal. Immediately to the right of the decimal is your tenths place. Because why? Again, if you covered this up and you looked at this, 2 and this would be 3 tenths. One digit would make it tenths. Okay, so the first digit to the right of the decimal point, tenths. So this 3 represents tenths. Then we have 32 and 4 tenths. Again, it's no different than if this was just 32. If this was just 32, you would know that that 3 is in the tens place. Okay, ones, tens, hundredths. And then the last one is 4 and 23 hundredths. We're looking again still at the digit 3. Remember, to the right of the decimal point, your first place would be tenths, and the second place would be your hundredths. Okay, so again, whenever you have a decimal number, just kind of look at it first without that decimal point, and you'll recognize what the whole number should be. And then, of course, when you look at the decimal point, one place to the right makes it tenths, two places makes it hundredths. Okay, let's go to the top of the next page, 373. This is example 2, where it says, which digit in 23 and 47 hundredths is in the same place as the 5 in 8 and 5 tenths. So let's take a look at that. Let me put that up on the board here. Okay, so your number is 23 and 47 hundredths. compared to the 5 in 8 and 5/10. Okay, so they're giving you two decimal numbers, 23 and 47/100ths and 8 and 5/10. And what they want to know is which digit in this number, the 23 and 47/100ths, is in the same place as the 5 in 8 and 5/10. Well, where is the 5 in 8 and 5/10? It's the first digit to the right of the decimal point. That's your tenths. So then look back up in 23 and 47/100ths, you need the digit that's the first digit to the right of the decimal point. That is also in the tenths. So the 4 in 23 and 47/100ths is in the same place as the 5 in 8 and 5/10. Okay, then the next section talks about naming decimal numbers. Okay, it says to name a decimal number, we first name the whole number part, then we name the decimal part. Well, obviously you've heard me read the numbers. We looked at decimal numbers yesterday. Okay, you're doing the whole number portion first, followed by the decimal portion. Okay. Example 3 asks you to use words to name each number. Okay, so let's just take a look at that, and they have written out what those word names are. So example A, you have 12.34. Okay, so how you read that, again, the whole number is the 12 because that's before the decimal point. So it's 12 when you get to the decimal point, and so 12 and 34/100ths because there are two digits to the right of the decimal, so that makes it hundredths. Then example B is 1.3. So your whole number is 1, decimal point and then one digit makes it tenths. So 1 and 3/10. And then the last one is 6.07. So 6 is your whole number. The decimal point is where you say and. There are two digits to the right of the decimal point, so that makes it hundredths. 6 and 7/100ths. Okay, and you see those word names written out for you. Just remember, please, that this is tens and hundreds, and with decimal places, it's tenths with a TH and hundredths with a TH. Okay, let's take a look at the practice. Okay, let's go to practice. Just clear the board so we have some room to work. Okay, so part A of the practice asks you to name the place value of the 7 in each number. Okay, I'll get these up here for you. So they want us to take a look at the 7 in each of these numbers and decide what is the place value of the 7. Okay, so the first one, A, again, to the left of the decimal are your whole numbers. So what is your place value? Well, to the left of your decimal point, you know you have ones, you have tens, you have hundreds and thousands and so on. To the right of your decimal point, this is your tenths place, and this is your hundredths place. Okay, so we're looking at the 7 here. The 7 is in what place? The 7 is in the ones place because it's part of the whole number of 17. So your 7 is in the ones place. So here you would write ones because the 7 is in the ones place. In B, it's 61 and 72/100ths. Again, we're looking at the decimal portion here. To the right of the decimal point is your decimals. And so here you have the 7, which is immediately to the right of the decimal point, making it in the tenths place. The next example, 26 and 17/100ths. Again, we're still looking at the 7. Immediately to the right of the decimal point is the tenths place, and the next digit is in the hundredths place. And then in D, we have 72 and 61 hundredths. We're looking at the 7 here, which is part of your whole number. And the 7 is in the tens place. Okay? So again, you have to the left of the decimal point, ones, tens, hundredths, and so on. And to the right of the decimal point, you have tenths, hundredths. Okay? The next portion of the practice asks which digit is in the tenths place in these numbers. Okay, so we have $43 and 85 hundredths. 438 and 5 tenths, 4 and 38 hundredths, and 1,385 and 4 tenths. So here they're looking for you to name the digit that is in the tenths place, the digit in the tenths place. So where you just need to think, well, where do I always find the tenths place? Well, everything to the left of the decimal point is your whole numbers, and to the right of the decimal point is where you start with your decimals. So here's your decimal point. Look at where your decimal point is in each of your numbers. You know the first place to the right of the decimal, that's where you find your tenths. So they're asking which digit is in the tenths place. So you're just going to look to the right of each decimal point. Okay, so here 43 and 85 hundredths. Okay, your 8 is in the tenths place. 438 and 5 tenths. 5 is in the tenths place. 4 and 38 hundredths. To the right, immediately to the right of the decimal point is your tenths place. And 1,385 and 4 tenths. Okay, remember, if there's only one digit to the right of the decimal point, that's tenths. 2 digits makes it hundredths, but the digit that's immediately to the right is the one in the tenths place. The last portion of the practice for today asks you to use words to name each decimal. So let's just take a look at those, okay, and we can just sort of read that together. So the first number is 4 and 38 hundredths. 2 digits makes it hundredths. So it's 4 and 38 hundredths. Again, just remember when you have to write it in word form, hundredths in the decimals has that TH on it, and tenths in decimals is TH. Okay, J is 43 and 8 tenths. Okay, when you get to the decimal, that's where you say and. Look at your whole number before that, decimal point and then your decimal. So 43 and 8 tenths. K is 10 and 6 tenths. And the last one is 1 and 6 hundredths. You have 2 digits, even though it's just 6, but you see that 0 before it. Okay, so that makes it hundredths because it's 2 places. Okay, today for your math work, you need to work on, obviously, lesson 108, and you'll be working on numbers 1 to 28, numbers 1 to 28, so you're completing all of that lesson. Okay. Again, it should be taking you, somewhere between 20-30 minutes to complete your lesson. You should still be working neatly, carefully. I know you don't have the sheets that we normally would use, but then these lessons we're doing all the problems anyway, so our sheets wouldn't help us. So you can just use regular white lined paper, or if you have paper with outlines, if you want to create your own boxes and work that way. But your work should still be done neatly, especially now that we're working with decimals. You're going to have to get used to being able to line up those decimal points, because later on as we begin to add and subtract decimals, it's important to keep those decimals lined up. So you still need to be working neatly, carefully, taking your time, looking your work over. Okay, remember, you're not going to work carelessly. It does need to be neat. I still need to be able to read it as you send it to me. Okay, and again, the goal is to get the most number correct. Also, in addition to your math lesson, you know that you should be spending at least 20 minutes in additional math practice. Okay, again, that means either the extra math or IXL, but you need to be putting in that time. Again, if you're in extra math, you need to be working even more in there, because your goal is to move out of extra math and into IXL. Okay, so again, remember, work carefully and neatly, and I'll see you later.